So next we're going to hear from Deidre Ehlen, who is the Public Art Project Manager at Arlington Public Art in Arlington, Virginia. Deidre is going to talk about her work over the past 3 years to bring attention to Arlington's civil rights history with printer Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. Deidre?
Hi, thank you. 4 years ago, the county's historic preservation program approached public art because they wanted to find a way to commemorate 2 important upcoming anniversaries. The first was the 60th anniversary of the desegregation of Stratford Junior High School. The image here is at 8:45 on February 2nd, 1959, when 4 young students, Ronald Duskins, Michael Jones, Lance Newman, and Gloria Thompson, entered Stratford Junior High in Arlington, Virginia. When they stepped into Stratford that day, they became the first students to desegregate a public school in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Next slide. Next slide. Thank you. The second was the 60th anniversary of the Arlington, sorry, can you go back one? I think it skipped. The second was the 60th anniversary of the Arlington lunch counter sit-ins. Thank you. On June 9th, 1960, just after 1 p.m., a dozen people walked into the People's Drug Store at 4709 Lee Highway, now Langston Boulevard, in Cherrydale, now a CVS, and began what would become a peaceful countywide demonstration for the right of all people to be served at what had historically been white-only lunch counters. 13 days later, a Woolworth store in Arlington was the first to announce that patrons would be served regardless of the color of their skin. Next slide. Historic Preservation's idea was that we commission an artist to create a bronze sculpture of a lunch counter and a stool. We told them we could do something that better engaged the whole community, that spoke broadly to the county's civil rights history, and that brought attention to the places and events that are often overlooked in our collective memory. Around the same time, our colleague Cynthia Connolly had just come back from Richmond, where she took this picture of Amos Paul Kennedy Jr. at VCU. She told me about Amos and handed me one of his letterpressed cards. At that moment, we knew he was the right artist to think about this history through the lens of public art. Amos creates prints, posters, and postcards from handset wood and metal type, oil-based inks, and eco-friendly chipboard. Much of his work is inspired by proverbs, sayings, and quotes that are significant to the place that he is working. Since 2018, Amos has been visiting Arlington to meet community members, research Arlington's history, and create letter prints in response to his discoveries. Before COVID, he had been engaging community members to make prints about Arlington's civil rights history at different community events throughout the county. Next slide. In addition to this work, we wanted Amos to have a special focus on the lunch counter sit-ins. Next slide. It is our dream that every person living and working in Arlington receive or encounter one of these prints to prompt their rediscovery of this part of the county's history. To make this happen, we worked with Cynthia Connolly, Special Projects Curator for our Cultural Affairs Division. Working together, we had Amos create 7 letterpress cards that honor the 7 lunch counter sit-ins. Each include a quote from a different participant and information about each sit-in. Amos made a total of 7,000 cards. Next slide. Cynthia manages 2 programs. The first is the Art on the Art Bus, which is an exhibition of original art in an Arlington County bus, which is aptly named Art. In addition to the cards, Amos made these placards that you see here, which were installed in an art bus in January of 2020. By placing the artwork on the bus, about 120,000 people were able to see the artwork and learn a little bit about this history. While at the same time, Amos's prints that he made with the community were available for free in the lobby of our government center. Next slide. The second project that Cynthia oversees is the Arlington Art Truck, which brings interactive art projects to where people gather and convene. She created this interpretive banner incorporating a timeline and historical images to further tell the story. There wasn't a lot of information out there about this history, and so this banner sort of brought it all together. Next slide. This is one of the sit-in cards that Amos made for the Arlington Art Truck that was set to launch in the spring of 2020, where typically Amos and the Art Truck would have gone to farmers markets and other events throughout the county so that people could letterpress with him or collect one of the already made cards. But because of COVID, we definitely had to shift. And in addition, our partners would have been at that event, the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington and Historic Preservation, to answer any questions about this history. Next slide. Here is another one of the sit-in cards. So when quarantine happened in March 2020, we didn't do the project as described. We moved it to the spring of 2021 and just sort of wanted to wait and see what happened. So Cynthia and I worked with our colleagues, Angela Adams and Elizabeth Carricker, and decided to place a stand where people could collect the cards at many of the original sit-in locations. Next slide, sorry. Here is a shot of the art truck and the cards at a CVS, which was a People's Drugstore. Next slide. In addition, we developed a wildly successful social media campaign that took 6 months to develop and was executed over 4 weeks. We worked with Detroit-based documentary photographer Garrett McLean to document Amos's creative process through video and photos, which were later used on Instagram and Facebook. Next slide. After a month long of heavy social media with over 500 cards collected from each site, yes, there was someone replenishing the stands 3 to 4 times a week. The stands were moved again to the lobby of our government center for anyone to collect. In early September, the stands will move once again to the Black Heritage Museum of Arlington, and we are currently developing a permanent project based on Amos's letterpress cards. Amos has never done a permanent project like this before, so we will likely do a collaboration with him and another artist. This project has relied on lots of partners throughout the county and nonprofits, lots of creative thinking and pivoting. Thank you.
Thanks, Deirdre.